Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.
Imam, another opportunity for an incredible conversation, I hope. And I wanted to start today off by sharing with you a story. I think many young believers who try to preach faith and teach about God will find a similar story actually. It's the situation where I'm having this conversation with this individual who claims to be an atheist and have defended God and even dismantled some of the cases against God. And in some ways he's convinced. He'll accept the idea of a deity, some supernatural force outside of the universe. But then he'll make this sarcastic retort. And the idea is that, well, look at all these different faith traditions. How am I supposed to pick one? What's the point of going through all of this and picking one of these to follow?
And I've personally actually had to deal with people like that quite a bit over the course of my career. And it's for me, it's ironic and quite sad that someone would accept all the different cases for God and will accept our refutations of the cases against God. And then when that person arrives at the crossroads and now they want to take that final step and follow faith and follow religion and become a servant of God, they're struck by the multiplicity of religions and the diversity of religious paths and all these multiple faith traditions that are making conflicting claims, that are attacking each other. And that person might actually feel discouraged and disillusioned and disheartened and might even say, you know what, and we hear this a lot, I'm just going to go ahead and avoid organized religion altogether and just be a spiritual person.
Yeah, I think it's a very popular thing to do for many people, many young folks in particular, to just say, well, I don't follow any organized religion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the problem seems to go deeper, that this the varying religious traditions, this actually becomes a case against God. This actually becomes a challenge to faith in God himself.
It really becomes something similar to that, and it's not surprising either, because think about it. You go to the farmer's market, for instance,
right.
And then, farmer's markets, you see people who sell the same product, so many of them, in stalls right next to each other. Mm-hmm. So let's say that you go to the cherry sellers. Yeah. There's 5 cherry sellers. All of them are selling cherries, and every single one of them is trying to convince you to buy their cherries.
Right.
My cherries are the real cherries. All the other cherries are not true cherries. They're not real cherries. All the juicy, most delicious cherries are my cherries. And so, you're hearing this from every stall. You're hearing this from every single, cherry seller. And then they start looking at each other and attacking each other and disqualifying each other and disqualifying each other's cherries. And then you're looking at this spectacle and you're absolutely disgusted. And you know what? I'm not eating. I will just fantasize about cherries in my mind, but I'm not going to eat cherries. I'm done with cherries. Or perhaps you're going to start eating strawberries. I think this analogy, summarizes in a way, how people who are seeking God are often discouraged by the type of debate now that is happening in the world of religion, and that is a very serious problem.
Right, so it's not just that there's varying cherry sellers, that there's different groups and you can buy from one or the other, but it's also the behavior of those cherry sellers, the kind of conflicting claims about their cherries, and then the kind of fanaticism. They start to mock each other, deride each other's character, insulting each other. And so you're saying that somebody will just...
So basically, this is what you're facing. If you're seeking God, mm-hmm. First you will face the multiplicity of religion, mm-hmm. and that in and of itself is discouraging.
Right.
But perhaps you will overcome this and you'll say to yourself, you know what, let me go ahead and try to pursue the right path or the right religion. But once you do that, you will be struck by the multitude of claims that are made by each religion and how those claims are antagonistic to each other. Right. And then you will reach a point where you start realizing that they're attacking each other and acting in a fanatical fashion against each other. And then this causes war and strife and pain, and it just becomes discouraging to follow religion altogether.
Yeah, and another case against God, unfortunately. Maybe not a rational one, but still one that is appealing to some.
It is very serious.
So the other option to solve this issue is to discuss every faith tradition, to go through the litany, the list of so many different traditions.
That's impossible. That's a fool's errand. That is basically something that would take us eons to achieve. We don't have untold years. You know, people have families and they have jobs and they have careers. You know, there's little time left every day. It is an unfair call to tell everyone that it's either you're born in the right tradition, or if you're not, you need to basically break the earth, you know, traveling from one continent to the other, learning every language in order to fully and comprehensively understand the claims of each religion. That'd be impossible.
It seems utterly impossible. And I think, again, people just take this and they feel the overwhelming sense of it, and then they just give up on religion.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel that there must be some kind of an approach, some kind of a methodology you could recommend to approach this issue.
Well, instead of trying to understand every religion in its fullest, perhaps we can study the categories of religion.
Category like the monotheistic, the Eastern versus
No.
Western?
Categories in the sense of their claims to salvation. I think this will serve our purposes here a lot more efficiently.
Claims to salvation, you think you're focusing on this because that's the key issue, right? Every religion is conflicting on its claim to salvation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different categories when it comes to the claims of salvation?
Right, and that's what I wanted to actually talk about, you know, in the next few moments or so. So the very first category of religions when it comes to the claims to salvation is called the exclusivist group. Mm-hmm. And the exclusivist group basically believes, you know, if you follow exclusivist religion, you believe that your religion is the only right religion, is the only correct path to God. Every other group is wrong. Every other path is wrong. Just my path. Only my cherries are the right cherries. Nobody else is selling the right cherries. And in that understanding, everyone else is basically going to hell. You are the only one that will be saved, or the following of your path are the ones that will be saved. And in this understanding, it matters how you worship God, not just the mere recognition of God. It matters how you worship Him. You have to worship Him based on the right doctrinal practices that are derived from the right religion. You have to talk to God in the right way. You have to follow the right scriptures, because every other scripture is wrong. And so that pretty much summarizes the exclusivist path.
So this exclusivist path, what would it say about kind, loving, wonderful people from other traditions?
They're all going to hell, basically.
And there's no questions about it.
They're all going to hell. You know, it's not just what you do. It's your recognition of God, having the right ideas about God, following the right doctrinal practices, worshiping God in accordance with the right religion, and behaving in a kind, compassionate manner, having the right morals and so forth. So if you are the kindest person on earth, and you are the most charitable person on earth, and you are the most amazing person on earth, but you don't worship God in accordance with the right religion, you are still doomed to hell.
So who are the exclusivists?
You know, actually I would say that, you know, the followers of most religions today are exclusivist. You know, most Muslims are exclusivist. Most Christians are exclusivist. Most Jews are exclusivists. That is the majority of the followers of religion, and that's you know, that's what the person that aspires to find God, that is the first group that person experiences.
Could you explain how, for example, how are Jews exclusivists? Is this about their birth? And
you know, in fact, I think that Judaism is perhaps the most exclusivist in terms of its claims to salvation, because the Jewish doctrine is such that you need to be born to a Jewish mother in order for you to be considered, you know, a true Jew. In fact, I would take it even a step further and say God has to find something good in you to give you the honor of being born to a Jewish mother. Therefore, you would be saved, you know, accordingly.
So before you've done anything, before you've made any choice.
Exactly.
That is quite exclusive. Christians are also exclusivists.
I mean, think about it. Very conservative Christians would say, you know, Orthodox Catholics and so forth, they would say that you have to accept Jesus Christ as your God, Lord and Savior, in order for you to be saved. And so, if you convert to Christianity, you have to be baptized right away. If you're a mother and you gave birth to a baby, you really need to take the baby to the, you know, a lot of Catholic mothers do that, take the baby to the church in order for the baby to be baptized. You know, otherwise if the baby died, the baby would not be saved. And so you have to accept that. in order for you to be saved, then that's a pretty exclusivist claim.
Okay, so these are the exclusivists, and I do feel some issues with this. The first of which is
it's not just Jews and Christians, by the way. To be fair, I also have to say that the vast majority of Muslims follow the exclusivist claim. I mean, you have to take your shahada, and you have to utter the testimony of faith. You have to go through that ritual, and you need to accept the Quran, and you need to accept the Prophet Muhammad as the final message in order for any of your deeds to amount to anything,
right,
to lead you to salvation, basically.
Although at least I think in Islam, the claim is not made against innocents or children who...
Definitely not.
Right, okay.
Definitely not.
But still an exclusivist claim, a traditionally exclusivist claim. One of the issues that I see coming up right away is that you have to be pretty fortunate to be in the right group.
If you're born to the right group, you're the luckiest person on earth, basically. It's just which group is the luckiest group is for us to decide. That is the crux of the matter, right? But the exclusivist claim is riddled with a lot of conceptual problems that we have to overcome in order for us to accept it. And so you have to be born into the right group, or you have to convert to that right group.
Right.
And if you were neither, you did not have the good fortune of either being born or converting, you basically have to, spend the next untold years, searching for the right group. And if you search for the right group and actually think that you've arrived at the right group, you'll be faced with a tremendous amount of fragmentation within the group itself.
Once you find the group, there's still so much to be examined within the group and the claims within the group and the different subjects within each group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Should I be a conservative or Orthodox Jewish person? Should I be, Mormon or Catholic or Baptist? Should I become Sunni or Shia? And if I choose to be Sunni, should I become Hanafi or Maliki? And if I choose to become Hanafi, should I become Diyubandi or Ahlul Hadith, and so on and so forth?
Right.
And each group thinks that the other group is wrong.
And I think once you've made the choice, let's say that you were fortunate enough, you think that you found the truth, then you move to a place where there are different people practicing a variety of different traditions.
Very diverse societies,
Right.
large cities and stuff
Right.
like that. And then you start befriending people who follow other faith traditions, right? Not the winning right group that you follow. And then you realize, that these people lead good lives, they're honorable, they're charitable. This old lady, goes to church every Sunday and she loves God so much.
Gives people
and
candy.
Gives people candy and supports the orphans and stuff like it. It becomes very difficult for you to accept the prospect of that lady, going to hell just because she did not follow your path. And then, it starts unhinging you. It starts unsettling you, and then you start thinking, wait a second, maybe she is on the right path and not me. So that is big trouble right there.
I think one of the issues here is also that folks from the atheist background will look at all of this and say, okay, well, why did God make all these different paths? If He's asking us to follow one,
Absolutely.
Why make only one and all of the others are deviant?
If there's only one exclusive path to you, Lord, why do you have to trick us by creating
Right.
a multitude of other paths? And then most of us are going to get in trouble because we're not choosing the right one, and then you're going to punish us for it.
Right.
So what is this? Is this some kind of a conspiracy? Is God just trying to increase the inhabitants of hellfire? It just doesn't make any sense. And a lot of people literally lose their faith based on this idea alone.
Right. And those who are committed to the exclusivist perspective might say in a kind of cold way, well, that's it, that you just got to deal with it. And I think that doesn't seem to be the spirit, the compassionate spirit of faith and of God, if you're looking for God and searching for God.
Right.
So I do think it's important for us to consider the other category, and I'm going to venture a guess, exclusivists, so these are the inclusivists.
That's always a safe prediction. The opposite of the exclusivists would be the inclusivists.
Right.
And as you can imagine, inclusivists are really kind, nice, loving, compassionate people who could not bear the idea, of God being like a terrorist, basically.
Yeah.
God throwing people en masse to hellfire because He set them up. You and I know that this is not the right understanding of God, but a lot of people thought that, I can't accept that this is the right perception of God. So the inclusivist approach was created. And in the inclusivist approach, it is assumed that every major religion is correct. Every major religion is inspiring. It's beautiful. There is a manifestation of divine spirit in every major religion. Therefore, it doesn't matter which one you follow as long as you follow it well.
Truth is found in every major religion?
Truth is found in every major religion. Exclusivists would actually say that doctrinal truth is what matters. It's the most important thing, and you follow that doctrinal truth to the end of the earth. Inclusivists, however, say doctrinal truth is important, but there are other matters that are also important. There's culture, there's support system, there's language, there's familiarity. And so God manifested himself in all these great religions all over the world. And so if you grew up in the heartland of America, for example, in the American South, and your parents were Southern Baptist and they used to go to this particular church, just keep going to that church, please. Right? Don't convert to Buddhism and don't convert to Islam.
Don't
search. Because there is truth in your path. You've been worshiping God in English for the longest time. Your family does the same. Your parents go there, your siblings, your future fiance or your future husband or wife, whatever, they're going to that church. Just stay within that convenient existence. It's better for you. And since every religion is the right religion, don't waste your time basically, going and searching for something that would make your life difficult.
No major religion holds a monopoly on truth, and so there's no reason for you to change and search and find one that's better, one that's worse. The one you're in is probably the one that's best for you.
That is what they would say.
So are all religions admitted here? Every claim to be a religion?
No, they draw a line. So they're exclusivist in some minor sense.
Okay.
They do draw a line, and basically they only admit major religions that share, the great ideals about God. And so they don't admit cultish groups. They don't admit cannibalists, for example, or Satanism. They just admit major religions that have, the core foundations of the divine.
Who are some of the inclusivists?
Not that many, actually. I would say a lot of Hindu groups are inclusivists. This is a minority. You have to understand.
Right.
Exclusivists, this is the largest group. And so a lot of Hindu groups are inclusivist. The Unitarian Church in the West is inclusivist. And most perennialists, I guess, would be considered inclusivists as well.
I think the term perennialist will be new to many people. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Definitely. Perennialism or perennialist philosophy is a philosophical construct that basically assumes that there is a philosophical way by which we can ascertain the existence of divine truth in every religion. And so every religion lays a good claim to salvation, and they reach that conclusion philosophically and not just theologically.
So I can hear the voice of that same sarcastic atheist individual making another kind of jab. If all of the paths are equal, if there's no monopoly on truth, then why are you picking any of them?
Exactly. If every single one of them is the right path, is it really worth it then to go ahead and choose this versus the other? And the challenge, I think, is also that it's not just that those religions agree on every major matter. I mean, that's good and all. But the problem is also that they do disagree on other matters. In fact, some religions would assume that a particular act is right, when another religion assumes that very act is also wrong.
Right.
Some religions even criticize each other. And that is written in the scriptures. And so unless you are going to lead a very secular life, disconnected from religion in general, and kind of maintain this nominal attachment to some type of distant spirituality, you cannot really practice a religious life seriously if you follow the inclusivist approach. At the end of the day, should I feed my kids pork or not?
Right.
And on what basis am I going to make that decision?
Right, and this will vary even based on who's admitted and who's not. Who gets to decide who's admitted, because You know, if you admit more people, there'll be more differences in claims. You admit fewer religions, there'll be perhaps fewer differences.
Not only that, I mean, they basically say cults are not admitted. Okay, well, Islam and pretty much Christianity, they actually started not very different from cults.
Right.
Very, very small groups, disrupted society, upended the social order. And so who gets to say which group is included in the inclusivism and which group is not?
So both categories, the exclusivists and the inclusivists, seem to be untenable. And yet we're here with the problem utterly unresolved. Now what?
There is a third group,
Okay.
as it turns out.
All right.
And so
we're breaking the binaries. I got it.
Right. So let's not think in binary terms here. There is a third group, and that third group, is trying to hold the stick from the middle. This is called the hybrid group, right? And not in any sense of driving a Toyota Prius. They're a hybrid in the sense that they are trying to reconcile between exclusivism and inclusivism. So they would basically say that there are a variety of religions in the world, right? Only one religion is the right religion. Only one religion is the most straightforward path to God. The others, there is traces of divine truth in them. God may have manifested himself here and there in those other religions. They're all difficult, they're all cumbersome, they're all crooked. And there's only one path that is simple and straightforward, is the one true path to God. However, if for one reason or the other you could not find that path, or if that path was difficult for you, inaccessible to you, and you followed one of those other paths, there's still a chance for you to make it, basically. That is the hybrid claim.
This is the claim that there are multiple paths up the mountain to God. There's one particular path that's the right path, but there are multiple meandering, precarious, dangerous paths, and if you're on one of those instead, you might still make it.
Right, there are monsters and beasts basically lurking on those paths, but you might still manage to overcome all that and make it to God. It should not be your first choice, and you should search for the right, true religion, but if you couldn't, then perhaps one of these paths would suffice.
Can you give us a few examples of the hybrid group?
There is quite a few Christian groups that are hybrid, mostly like on the liberal side of things, Methodists, Episcopalians, and so forth. We even see traces of this hybrid understanding in Islamic theology, manifested in the great teachings of Imam Ghazali, for example, and perhaps to a lesser extent Ibn Taymiyyah, which is really fascinating.
Right, in his writings, that does seem to be something that is indicated, but maybe not so clearly. I still feel like there are issues here too, though, and I need to bring these up. The first of these issues is that it seems as though this is a kind of inclusivism light. It still feels inclusivist.
Right. I mean, you're basically saying that I'm not going to be punished if I don't follow the right religion.
Right.
If that's the only thing I heard from you right now, then my conclusion would be, okay, then what's the point of trying to find out who that right religion is, or which that right religion is? If I still followed any of the crooked paths, I'll still make it, right? If the answer is yes, then that's it. I'm just going to follow whatever it is that I'm doing. There is no issue then.
And which one is the true path? Which one is the best path?
And I think that the followers of every religion would basically claim that, well, ultimately, we really are the followers of the true religion. So you said earlier that the hybrid path is inclusivism light or in disguise. It could also be characterized as exclusivism light or in disguise. Right. At the end of the day, we're not giving this person who wants to come to God, we're not giving them a straightforward, definitive answer. That person is coming to you thirsty and eager, hungry for spirituality, ready to serve God, ready to do amazing things in the world, and we're giving them these lame responses, exclusivism, inclusivism, hybrid. That person is going to look at us and be super discouraged.
Okay, so you're not going to surprise me with like a fourth category, right? These are the three categories: exclusivism, inclusivism, and the hybrid group. And here we are. I feel that we have left this issue utterly unresolved, despite the fact that we've covered every single category of religion.
Well, maybe that is the problem.
What is the problem?
Maybe the problem is that we're searching for religion. And if you search for religion, these are your three categories. You're going to find nothing. If you continue searching for a religion, you have to choose between the exclusivists, the inclusivists, and the hybrid.
I think that most people will say that if you've found God, if you believe in God, then the next thing you need to do is to search for religion. You need to find which religion has the strongest truth claim, and then you follow that religion.
Can we agree on the definition of religion, just so that we're talking about the same thing here?
Okay, maybe we need to start there. How are we defining religion in a way that works?
Most people would say that a religion is a set of rituals, rites, devotional practices, acts of worship, boundaries, do's and don'ts, in order to serve a deity of some sort, in order to regulate human moral and social life. I think that is pretty much the definition of religion.
I think this is a fine definition of religion. I think everyone will agree on this definition of religion. So
But this definition is fraught with problems, because this very definition would basically apply to every religion that we have. We've resolved nothing. Every single religion that exists on earth today can be defined by this. We're still in square one. On what basis am I going to make my decision to serve God?
Yeah, so that every religion qualifies under this definition, and yet we're still looking for something that has the 100% truth, the divine truth of God.
And if you continue to pursue those religions, one way or the other, even if you've overcome all the intellectual difficulties, even if you've overcome the exclusivist, inclusivist, hybrid challenges that we've mentioned earlier, once you've arrived at that religion, you will be shocked with the amount of inner fragmentation that happened within that religion itself. And then you're going to be, okay, you're going to start a new journey. Which manifestation of that religion am I going to be able to follow?
Perhaps you get over this issue too. You get over the inner fragmentation and you feel that you've found the true religion, the pure, unadulterated truth from God, sent to you on a silver platter, and now you're satisfied. Isn't this enough?
I think what you need to be looking for is not a religion. Again, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to this guy that overcame the intellectual difficulties, this guy that accepted the cases for God, this guy that accepted our refutation of the cases against God, that person that is at the crossroads, that is ready to serve the Creator. I say you need to be looking for the one true path to God. You're not looking for a religion. You're not looking for some set of rituals that can be compared with another set of rituals. You're not looking for a doctrine or a dogma that can be compared with another doctrine or dogma. We're not doing compare and contrast. You're looking for the one exclusive path to God that has been the path to God from day one, from the time of our father Adam until today. This unadulterated path that God has chosen for himself before he even chosen for humanity. What you really need to be looking for, essentially, is a deen.
A deen. This is the Arabic word for religion.
The deen is not Arabic for religion. The deen means, you being in a constant state of debt to God. Everything that you do in your life is an attempt to partially pay off that debt. Deen is not a set of rituals where I worship God on Sundays or I worship God on Fridays, and then the rest of the week I make my own subjective decisions to govern my own life. Deen means that the Divine Spirit permeates every second of every minute, of every hour, of every day of your entire existence.
Just to clarify some of the difference here between deen and religion, you're saying that deen is this one true message from God, and religion is something that's from God and also partially from the contributions of people. Is there something mixed up about religion?
So, think about it. What I said earlier is that deen is the unadulterated message that is inspired by the divine, that has always been around and will always be around and will never change.
Okay.
Religion, on the other hand, changes all the time. It evolves all the time. There is always scriptures, and then there's always scholarly opinions that are added to that scriptures. Take for instance Judaism. As a religion, there is a Torah, and then there's a Talmud. The Torah is, I think, agreed upon by many men of faith that this is, the scriptures, the Word of God. But the Talmud is a collection of rabbinic opinions and rabbinic perspectives and so forth that grew in size over time, that became its own corpus. And it became just as important as the Bible. Now it becomes inseparable from Judaism. And we've seen that same dynamic in Christianity. You cannot separate the teachings of Martin Luther from Protestant Christianity. You cannot separate the teachings of the Catholic Church and the Catholic councils, from Catholicism as a religion.
Itself, perhaps.
Exactly. Even from the Bible itself, you cannot separate the teachings of Mormon saints, from Mormonism. Even with Islam, there is the Quran, but then there's also the Hadith, and then there's the scholarly opinions. All this entire corpus is looked at as religion. And while sometimes, perhaps most of the time, we're able to conceptually distinguish between what is divine and what is man-made, at the end of the day, they're both somehow subsumed under the label religion, which is precisely not what I'm looking for when I'm trying to serve God. I am not looking for this. I am looking for the one and only path to God, the deen of God. The spiritual path that will enable me to pay off my debts, or attempt to pay off my debts to the Creator by every breath I take, by every step, by every decision, by every act of kindness, by every act of worship, every act of devotion, every minute I spend at work. This is the one thing that governs my entire life. It tells me how to get married, and if I need to get a divorce, with what spirit am I gonna, leave my spouse? It tells me how to do business, how to raise my children. It governs times of war and peace. It permeates every aspect of the human life. This is not religion, this is deen.
You can build an economy based on this, you can build a nation based on this, civilization can be founded upon. I think this is a powerful distinction, and I think that the idea of deen is something I'll be comfortable with as a Muslim. I'm happy with this reading and offering this special treatment for Islam, but I think to be intellectually honest, we have to ask ourselves, why is Islam the only faith tradition that is being afforded the qualification of a deen?
The status of deen, right?
The status of a deen.
Simply because it is the only faith tradition that makes that claim, period. If you are an honest person who's searching for God, and you arrive at the crossroads, okay, I have to accept God, it's a compelling case, I can't dismiss this anymore, how do I serve God? You come at the crossroads, you have to examine all the faith claims on earth, right? All of them will say we are religions, and this is why we are right, we're all cherry pickers, we're cherry sellers, pick me, pick me, pick me. In which case, you will put them in the exclusivist, inclusivist, or hybrid categories.
Right.
But if you find one path that does not say I'm a religion, that says I am this universal truth, this universal path for God, you will be intellectually compelled to pick that path.
Right. So
provided that you agree with its teachings.
Right. Now, so you found this one path that is making this claim. That no other. I mean, Judaism doesn't make this claim to be universal.
It does not.
Jesus did not make these claims.
Absolutely not. There's absolutely no other religion that makes such a universal claim. In fact, the Quran is very clear. Inna ad-deena 'inda Allahi al-Islam. The deen, as far as God is concerned, is Islam. And
now most Muslims will just say, well, Islam is the last religion. It's one of the religions, it's just the last one.
We I guess, made it into this. We made Islam into something smaller than it really is. By putting it in the category of religion, now it's just another box on the shelf amongst other boxes. Let people choose from these variety of boxes. Islam is much bigger and greater than that, right? And so Islam did not start with the Prophet Muhammad. And if it did, we would have called it religion. It was not founded by the Prophet Muhammad. It would have been a religion.
Mohammedanism or something like that.
Exactly. Actually, that's what many European Orientalists used to call us. Ultimately, that is not Islam. Islam, the very last teaching of Islam came with the Prophet Muhammad. Islam started at the time of Adam.
So
that's why Adam is called a Muslim, a prophet of Islam in the Quran.
And this is repeated. This idea of a Muslim is not just used for the ones who follow the Quran, but throughout history.
100%. I mean, look at the story of the Exodus, for example, in the Quran. The followers of Prophet Moses, are characterized as Muslims in the Quran. They're not called Jews. They're Hebrews who were actually Muslim. And then, they crossed the Sinai and went into the land of Palestine and so forth, established the kingdom of God and so on. And centuries passed, and these are the believers, these are the Muslims.
They're the followers of the deen.
The followers of the deen. They continue to be the followers of the deen centuries after Moses was gone. And then came along the great prophet Isa, prophet Jesus. And when Jesus came, these believers were expected to continue to be Muslim and to follow, prophet Jesus. And that would have made them Muslim as well. Many of them did, some of them did not. And those who did not follow Jesus are now being called Jews.
They're Jews.
Those are the Jews. So Judaism as a religion was not founded by Moses, according to the Islamic understanding. It was actually founded at the time Jesus came, and his message was rejected by some Hebrews. So instead of them becoming Muslim, they founded Judaism, and it became a thing on its own.
So I want to follow the same logic. So the followers of Moses and Jesus are believers, and they continue to be believers until Prophet Muhammad is sent. And when he's sent, then those who continue to follow Muhammad are...
They continue to be Muslim. Nothing has changed for them.
Right.
They're just Muslim. They're still Muslim. But those who refused...
That's the birth of Christianity as a separate deviation.
That is exactly what I'm saying. So think of it this way. The deen of God is a river. And this river started at the time of Adam.
Right.
And all these believers were swimming in the river, going downstream, moving in the same direction. And occasionally, some of them refuse to continue to swim down the stream, so they take a deviation from it, a little creek that goes in a different direction and refuses to follow the direction of the river itself. That river is Islam.
Right. And oftentimes that deviation will come at a critical moment, such as the coming of a new prophet, the coming of a new messenger.
Exactly.
That's when many will say, we're getting out of the water, we're going this way. And this is the birth of a religion.
Of a new religion.
Yeah, this is incredible. This is a powerful resolution, but I do want to ask some questions that help understand this a little clearly. So what about a monk who is living at the time of Muhammad? He's a follower of the teachings of Prophet Jesus. Most would actually call him a Christian. You're saying that we're not calling him a Christian.
That monk is not Christian. That monk is Muslim.
Okay, so
because
now,
that monk sincerely followed the teachings of Jesus, which would make him Muslim.
But now Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is there. He's doing his work, but they just have not made any contact.
And if that monk did not hear of the Prophet Muhammad and his teachings and died, in that state, then that monk died as Muslim. But if he heard of the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, and those teachings made sense, and he felt that this is the continuation of the deen, and still refrained or refused from following them, at that moment he actually becomes Christian.
So if he did get exposed to the teachings, he had an opportunity to ascertain that this is still the continuation of the deen, and then he rejects. So does this tell us anything about the idea of rejecting, of being a disbeliever? What does that mean now?
It's interesting because, again, exclusivists would say that everyone that does not follow your religion is a disbeliever. That's not exactly what we're saying here. In this paradigm, you were a believer up until a certain point, until you deviated. Now you're not as wholesome and complete as you used to be, right? And so, it's nuanced. We're not saying these are people that God will judge, in His own great wisdom, the way He wills and the way He desires. It's not up to us to decide. In this particular understanding, no one is capable of deciding who goes to heaven and who goes to hell.
Aside from God, of course.
Aside from God, of course.
Right. So this is, like I said, an incredible new take, and it goes outside of the categories. We're not interested in the categories of exclusivists, of inclusivists, of the hybrid. We didn't need to make these different groups. We're talking about something that is more foundational than the religion and the experience between scripture and man-made ideas interacting with each other.
I am refusing here to allow us to conceptually place Islam in another box that looks exactly like all the other boxes, and people need to choose between box A or box B or box C. That is not the proper way, because again, if you do that, you're going to run into the conceptual fallacies of inclusivism, exclusivism, and hybrid.
So this is really the last question I have here. For that individual who was looking and found legitimate arguments in support of God, and even felt that the arguments against God were defeated, and feels that they need to now somehow commit themselves to God. What are you calling that person to do?
If that person arrived at the crossroads and now they're looking at all these religions and feels confused, and he did a very simple search in order to examine what the religious and the spiritual paths on earth claim to be, and all of them claim to be just religions, and one of them said, I am the universal truth, the river of God that originated from the time of Adam to this day, the one true path, the one deen, you would be intellectually compelled to subscribe yourself and commit yourself to that path.
Incredible. We have, I think, had another amazing conversation, provided a solution, I think, that is far more useful and effective than the muddling between all these different perspectives. I hope that others will feel as well that we've clarified a lot of confusion that plagues people and makes them deviate from religious traditions or from God Himself. And all I need to do now is thank you again for an incredible conversation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.